You once loved a narcissist with your whole heart, trusted them with your entire soul, and gave away the very best parts of yourself. And then one day they walked away, as if you had never meant anything at all. But do you know what's strange? That narcissist never truly left your life. They've been watching from a distance, waiting to see if you'd fall apart, if you could rise again after the storm they unleashed. But today, you're not just getting back up. You're rising higher, stronger, brighter. Not for revenge, but to reclaim yourself, the version of you that no longer seeks validation through anyone's gaze. In this video, we'll explore how to make a narcissist regret losing you, not through vengeance, but through depth, intelligence, and most importantly, for you, not for them. Stay until the end, because every minute that passes is a step closer to your own rebirth. And if you see yourself in this story, don't forget to hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share your journey in the comments below. This community is here to uplift, to listen, and to walk beside you stronger than ever before. When a narcissist leaves you, they're not truly letting go. They're merely stepping back to watch, to see whether the pain they inflicted is deep enough to drown you. They want to see you shattered, worn down, lost in the loneliness they so carefully orchestrated. Because to them, that's the only way to reinforce their illusion that they are the center of your universe, that without them, you are nothing. But you know what? There is a kind of response that requires no words at all. It's called healing. Quiet, unassuming, but powerful enough to leave them stunned. Because the moment you start rebuilding yourself, you've exited the game board they once controlled. And that's exactly when they begin to lose their grip. Start with the smallest acts that hold the greatest power. Place your hand over your heart and ask, how long have I abandoned myself just to please someone who never truly cared? Then gently begin tending to your body, your sleep, your hydration, your nutrition, your movement. This isn't just about physical well-being, it's an act of self-respect. When you care for yourself, not to be seen, but because you know you're worth it, that's the beginning of real strength. Then turn inward and examine your mind. They made you question yourself. They made you feel like you didn't matter. But that was an illusion, a finely crafted lie born of manipulation. Learn to tell the difference between your own voice and the echo of theirs in your head. Journal, go to therapy, meditate, do whatever helps you hear yourself again. As your mind clears, you'll begin to see the truth you couldn't see before, that you never needed them to feel whole. And what about your emotions? You once loved them with your entire heart, but they only loved themselves through the reflection they saw in you. Now you have the right to take those emotions back and transform them into inner power. Cry if you must. Feel your anger if you must. But don't let those emotions chain you to the past. Use them as ink to write a new story, one where they no longer get a role. When you do all of this, you won't just make the narcissist regret losing you. You'll make yourself proud. They will watch you in silence, see you glowing peaceful and thriving without them. And that will drive them mad, because the power they once held is gone. When you stop seeking validation from someone who treated you like a disposable object, that's when you become dangerous to them. Not dangerous in the sense of vengeance, but in the sense of freedom. Because you've learned that love doesn't have to be begged for, that your worth never needed to be proven, and that your presence needs no one's permission to shine. And do you know what happens next? That's when they come back. Not because they love you. Narcissists don't return out of love. They come back because they feel the power slipping from their hands. Because you're no longer trapped in the emotional chaos they once controlled. They'll try the same old tricks, a surprise message, a vague apology, a memory designed to awaken your compassion. But this time, you are no longer the same person you were, because you've walked through the darkness and found the light, not a light from outside, but the one that burns quietly within. You don't need to scream. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. It is your silence and your peace that they cannot bear. Because you've taken off the mask you once wore to survive around them. And without the mask, there's no script they can use to control you anymore. You might secretly be asking yourself, am I just pretending to be strong? The answer is no. True strength doesn't come from acting like you don't care. It comes from choosing to love yourself even after being emotionally suffocated by a toxic relationship. It comes from not just surviving, but living honestly, living fully, living beautifully. And here is the most important thing. Do not look back. No matter if they return, no matter if they seem regretful, no matter how well they perform their little play of love, remember this: what they regret is not you. It's the supply you once gave. And the moment you stop supplying it, their true self resurfaces cold, hollow, and cruel. So keep walking. Live the life you once thought was impossible when you were with them. Love your peace. Choose relationships that honor your presence and cherish your heart, because you are worthy not just of love, but of freedom. What wounds a narcissist the most is not your rage, not your public exposure of them. It's your silence, your complete disappearance as if they never existed. They were once the center of your emotional universe, controlling every heartbeat, every sleepless night, every self-doubt. But now there is no way back in. No one waiting for their text, no one crying into a pillow, no one blaming themselves for not being enough. That's when panic begins. Because narcissists don't exist without someone else's gaze to reflect them. When you stop looking, they begin to vanish into nothingness. They'll try everything to resurrect their image in your mind, through social media, through mutual friends, through whispered gossip. They want you to see them thriving, happier than ever without you. But the truth is, narcissists don't know how to live with themselves. They only know how to exist through someone else's admiration or pain. So no, you don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You don't need to go back. All you need to do is keep living boldly, freely without them. Every step you take into the light is a step that pushes them closer to the edge of their own emptiness. And one day, in the silence of whatever room they're in, when there's no one left to manipulate, no one left to control, they'll remember you not as a victim, but as a symbol of what they lost forever. But to you, it won't be a painful memory anymore. It will be a marker of rebirth. The place you once collapsed will be the same place you rose with a heart no longer controlled, a soul no longer drained, and a self resurrected from the ashes. And remember what you've done, not everyone can do. Not everyone has the courage to look in the mirror and say, I once lost myself. But today, I choose me. If you're walking that path, or even just beginning, know this: you are not alone. And you can rebuild from the wreckage into someone freer, clearer, more radiant than you've ever been. When someone like you begins to reclaim each piece of yourself, not hurriedly, not for show, but quietly and steadfastly, that's when your energy begins to shift. You step into a new space, one without hollow apologies, without mind games, without sleepless nights spent wondering, what did I do wrong? You no longer need anyone else to tell you that you are worthy. Because your very presence, the fact that you're still standing after everything, is living proof of that power. At this stage, you're no longer seeking external validation. You choose to be around people who make you feel safe, not those who make you constantly question your worth. You choose healthy love, where there's no need to perform, no need to play the endless game of, am I enough yet? And then something strange happens. The narcissist begins to feel your absence. Not your physical absence, but the loss of the energy they once fed on. They will see you living joyfully, authentically. They'll notice the light back in your eyes, your smile no longer forced. They'll realize you're not just okay, you're evolving far beyond the narrow confines they once tried to trap you in. But instead of celebrating your growth, they feel abandoned, betrayed, by the very person they once wounded. Why? Because you broke their script, the one where you were supposed to stay, broken, weak, and waiting for their return. But you didn't. You didn't just escape the toxic cycle, you rebuilt your life from the ashes. And to a narcissist, that's unforgivable. Not because they ever loved you, but because you proved they were never the one who defined your identity. And in that realization, regret begins to seep into the quiet corners of their mind. But you're no longer there to hear it. You left not in rage, but in the stillness of someone who finally knows their worth and is no longer willing to pay for acceptance with their peace. You see, your rebirth is not a form of revenge. It's a survival choice, a conscious decision that you will no longer repeat the cycle where your inner calm is the cost of someone else's temporary satisfaction. And the moment you stop caring about what they think, stop hoping they'll one day see your worth, that's when you are truly free. The narcissist may hurt, but not because they lost someone they loved. They hurt because they lost control, because your indifference is something they have no way to manipulate. They'll try to poke old wounds, those places where you were once soft, where you once returned just because of a simple, "I miss you," or "you'll always be special." But now, you see it for what it is, an empty lure, void of love, filled only with a hunger for power. And you've changed. You no longer respond with emotion but with awareness. You no longer ask, "What are they thinking? But do I want this in my life?" You no longer measure your value through their attention because you know now your presence has always been enough, even in silence. Isn't it remarkable? You once thought you couldn't live without them, and now you don't even want to share the same emotional universe. They were once the sun around which your world revolved, and you, the satellite chasing warmth that never stayed. But now you know you are your own sun. You don't need them to come back to close the chapter. You write your own ending by simply living, smiling, loving, and moving forward without needing to justify a thing. They may see you, but they can no longer touch you. They may regret, but you've already passed the point where their regret holds any healing power. You used to believe that to make them regret, you had to become perfect, more successful, more beautiful, more desirable. But then you realized that was still playing their game, a never-ending race where the prize was a fleeting glance from someone who never truly saw you. So you stopped. You stopped chasing. You stopped trying to be chosen. You turned inward, listening to yourself for the first time after years of being drowned out by rejection and manipulation. And in that sacred silence, you discovered the most powerful truth. You were never as weak as they wanted you to believe. You were the one who loved with sincerity, forgave more times than you should have, and endured with hope. And that is not foolishness. That is strength. When you truly understand that you no longer need them to look back to know you were worthy. You don't need an apology to heal, and you certainly don't need anyone to admit they were wrong, because real healing begins the moment you stop waiting for those things. When you choose to close the chapter without closure, when you decide to end a story simply because you're ready to begin a new one, that is where true power lies. As for the narcissist, they'll continue living in the illusion that you're still silently waiting. But one day, they'll realize you've gone far, not in distance, but in energy. They can't reach you anymore. They can't reopen old wounds because you've turned them into scars, badges of your growth. You are no longer the one who cried in silence over their cold words. You are the one walking in the radiant light of self-respect. Someone who no longer needs to impress just to live fully and truthfully. You don't need to seek revenge on the narcissist. You only need to live a life in which their existence is no longer at the center of anything you do. Because that is what terrifies them most, being forgotten. No longer the reason behind your pain, no longer the shadow that haunts your nights. They no longer get to be the main character in your story. They've been written out not with bitterness, but with maturity. When you heal not to prove a point, but to set yourself free, you've done something a narcissist will never understand. Loving yourself without conditions. They survive on the hunger to be desired. You now live from a place of inner peace. They manipulate to feel alive. You awaken to be free. And one day they might see you on social media, through a mutual friend or by sheer coincidence. And they'll witness something they never expected: you more radiant than ever. Without them, they'll see that you've changed. Not the kind of change they once encouraged to become someone more compatible with their needs, but a transformation into someone free, grounded, and authentic, so complete there's no longer space for them to return. And if they're ever brave enough to face themselves, that will be the moment their real pain begins. Not because they lost you, but because for the first time in their life they can't control the outcome. They can't provoke a reaction. They can't stir up your longing. They can't re-enter your world with just a few empty words. And that is the moment you win. Not a victory over them, but over the version of you that once believed love had to hurt. That you had to sacrifice yourself to be chosen. That pain was the price you had to pay to keep someone close. Now you know no one is worth losing yourself for. No one. So if you're in the darkest days after being discarded by a narcissist, remember this. This is not the end. This is the transition, a turning point from dependence to awakening, from pain to power, from being someone who constantly sought to please others to becoming a soul that finally knows how to love itself. The narcissist may have drained you. They may have stolen your confidence, your radiance, even your peace. But there's one thing they can never touch: what you're reclaiming today. Your freedom. Not just freedom from them, but freedom from the need for their validation. That is the greatest victory. A triumph that requires no audience, no applause, just you, whole, grounded, and awakened. Let your rebirth be the final answer. No need to text, no need to look back, no need to show them. Just live boldly, joyfully, and honestly. That's something they'll never be able to do. That's what wounds them most. And that's exactly what you will do, not for them, but because you are worth it. If you're on this path or just taking your first fragile steps, I want you to know this: you are not alone. Here we are, a community of those who have known pain, walked through the darkness, and are learning how to move forward with a light that comes from within. Hit that subscribe button if you see yourself in this story. Leave a comment, share your experience, or simply write, "I'm healing." So you know someone out there is walking beside you. Every video here is made not just to recount the pain, but to remind you of one simple truth: you're still here. And you are coming home to yourself. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a message that might lift you up right when you need it most. Because sometimes all it takes is one timely word, one moment of resonance to help you rise again. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. And remember this: you don't need to be chosen by anyone else, because you've chosen yourself. And that is the most beautiful choice you will ever make.